I'm Daryl Owens. Welcome to A World of Difference. Our program celebrates and supports families rearing children who think and learn differently on their journeys from kindergarten through college. A World of Difference is the educational outreach program of Beacon College. The Leesburg, Florida School is America's first accredited baccalaureate institution dedicated to educating primarily students with learning disabilities, ADHD, dyslexia, and other learning differences. So let's get started. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. In its 75th year, the observance is meant to celebrate the ingenuity people with disabilities bring to America's workplaces and to remind employers of the importance of inclusive hiring practices. Yet, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics recently found only 17.9% of persons with a disability were employed, compared to 65% of individuals without a disability. Indeed, people with invisible disabilities often go unemployed because, among other things, employers feel they may lack the necessary knowledge and soft skills, might be less productive than people without disabilities, and that their coworkers will react negatively to working with them. Though the Americans with Disabilities Act and other legislation open doors for people with disabilities, more remains to be done to increase access and opportunity. Moving the employment needle is the fundamental concern for parents who hope their children with invisible disabilities can earn worthy work, either after high school or college, that allows them to live productive, independent lives. On this episode, we explore what one program is doing on a local level, not only to equip individuals with learning disabilities and other challenges to enter the workforce, but also to change employer and community perceptions about workers who think and learn differently. Next, we'll get a read on what's happening nationally with inclusive hiring, with an interview with the leader of Broad Futures, a program that serves young adults with learning disabilities through a holistic training, mentoring, and paid internship program. Later, in our new Just the Facts segment, our experts will explain how diversifying the workforce with people with learning disabilities is a win-win. We'll wrap up things with this month's difference maker, the brilliant young mind developing a new job seeker online platform designed to match employers with qualified autistic candidates. What does it take to move the employment needle? Why should employers care about neurodiversity in the workplace? All that coming up momentarily. In a recent report, CPRF, a nationally recognized disability advocate, noted that low employment rates of persons with disabilities poses a continuing problem. These individuals, the report notes, have the same desires and needs for job and career satisfaction as their counterparts without disabilities. Yet, barriers to employment deny them the opportunity to achieve those outcomes. And these barriers prevent employers from discovering and benefiting from talented potential employees. In Maitland, Florida, the RAISE program is working to create a win-win solution for employers, disabled job candidates, and society with a program that helps employers in the community recognize their strengths and embrace inclusion. A World of Difference correspondent, Cindy Peterson, shares the story.
Here today at the Jewish Community Center in Maitland to take a closer look at the RAISE program, who has worked with about 50 adults with disabilities, teaching them skills that have helped them get jobs in the community. Here's directors Rachel Slavkin and Lauren London to tell us more.
The RAISE program began, the inception was 2012, and it began really with the story of my brother, who came to this JCC in Central Florida, the Roth family JCC, and my brother had special needs. And he was loved here. He worked out in the fitness center. He stopped at the snack bar and had a bagel every day and would come home and just share his great days. And one day, when after sharing how much he loved being greeted by all the people who worked here, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could build some kind of program where not only my brother would have a home here, but others as well. So it really was about inclusion, and the leadership here from day one said, great. And so here we are now in 2020, muddling through these times, but we have pivoted and moved on with our work and social skills training program for adults with special needs. And really, Rachel, why don't you share a little bit about our mission statement and what it is we really do?
As Lauren mentioned, RAISE is a work and social skills training program for adults with disabilities. So we hire a small group of adults with disabilities in our community, and we give them jobs. We give them paying jobs in our partnering agencies. And for many of the adults that we work with, this is the first time in their life that they've earned a paycheck, but also had a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and felt like they were contributing to our community. So we employ our adults, and they work with a volunteer job coach who is with them on site at their jobs, helping them to learn how to do the job, but also how to navigate all what we call the soft skills of employment. Things like accepting feedback and being open to making a change if that's needed. In addition to that, all of our employees are required to attend what we call Lunch and Learn, which is a social skills training course that I run out of Social Bridges. And we've written a curriculum to help our employees again, learn the social skills that are needed for employment, because so much of the research of adults with disabilities in the workforce shows that they can be your most loyal, your most dedicated, your most consistent employees, but where they tend to struggle is with their social skills and their interpersonal skills. So by spending time with me each week developing those social skills, they are then able to apply those skills when they go to work each week at their jobs in RAISE.
Here at the JCC, RAISE graduate Regina Marchionda works with children as a certified child care assistant, a job she said she might not have had it not been for what she learned through the RAISE program.
I've been working here since October of 2017, and I've been enjoying it ever since then. It's an honor to be in the RAISE program because it makes a difference with people with special needs, because it makes me feel like I'm honored to be one of the part of the family, and you all are a part of my family. The most valuable thing that I learned being in the RAISE program is interacting with other people in the community. It helped me in my job by interacting with other people and learning how to have self-advocacy and learning how to be understanding about constructive criticism and learning how to be more appropriate to my supervisors. And I enjoy helping out with my supervisor and learning how to interact with people, with my coworkers.
Regina's mother, Ellen, met with us on Zoom about her feelings on the program.
We need to raise our voices and let everyone hear this. In the media, it's just something that should be, spread out to the community. It's helpful to the community because there are so many individuals that have these types of disabilities that can work, that can show, the different agencies in the community, how well these individuals have gone through the program, have all these tools in their toolkit to use. It's just amazing.
In Apopka, RAISE graduate Leslie Ann Fisher joined the team at Tiny Tots Faith-Based Learning Center, where she told us what she loved most about the RAISE program.
I like that they just gave us advice for the work field, because there's plenty of other young adults like me that kind of struggle with learning social skills and whatnot, and work skills and all that.
Each day I come to work, ironically enough, Leslie Ann teaches me and her coworkers. She teaches us patience, love, kindness, gentleness, all of the fruits of the Spirit that we ask for and get freely on a daily basis is really what she teaches us on a daily basis. We don't see a disability. I see her attributes. I see what she is able to provide, the stability for our parents and our children, and the love that she pours out into them.
Over at RE/MAX in Winter Park, we met up with RAISE graduate Kenya Matthews and her supervisor, Abby Nelson, to see how they have benefited from this job placement.
I started here since 2017, soon after I graduated from the RAISE program, and I'm an office assistant. And one of the things that I learned here these days is meeting some nice people, and plus having to do responsibility of doing a task and for me a job.
You know, when Kenya comes into the office, it's the brightest smile you could ever see and the biggest hello you could ever have. And it's just such a, welcoming touch, and it brings a lot of joy to the office. There are opportunities, first and foremost. You get so stuck in the day-to-day grind a lot of times that you don't slow down and say, oh wow, someone else could be doing this in a very rhythmic fashion. And so first it allows you to, really think and integrate others into the workforce, and it helps us. So it's, just very rewarding and, just helpful for the community to see that they too can bring in someone and integrate them into our society a little bit better than I think we have in the past.
For A World of Difference, I'm Cindy Peterson.
Thanks, Cindy, for that inspiring story. We now turn to the national landscape. Washington, D.C.-based Broad Futures believes that young people with learning disabilities have limitless potential, yet fewer than half finish college or find stable employment. Broad Futures helps them live up to their full potential by matching them with employers and mentors who allow them to experience a judgment-free environment where they are allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. For a view from her national perch, we welcome Carolyn Jepson, co-founder, CEO, and president of Broad Futures, to A World of Difference. Thank you for joining us, Carolyn. Let's get right into it. Tell us about Broad Futures.
Broad Futures is a nonprofit that's a national program. It's located in Washington, D.C., and it's a training, mentoring, and paid internship program for young people with learning and related disabilities. So it was founded with myself and my two co-founders, Diana Eisenstadt and Brad Holmes, in 2013. We spent a year of doing research before we started running our first programs in the summer of 2014.
What demographics does the program serve?
We serve young people who have a diagnosed learning disability. Many of the young people we serve have other disabilities as well. They are between the ages of 18 and 26, so they have to have graduated from high school. They have to have the cognitive ability to go on to college. That does not necessarily mean that is the right path for them and that's the path they're taking, but they have the cognitive ability to do so. So most of the young people we serve have, as I said, an diagnosed learning disability. In addition to attention issues, ADHD, we serve about 20% of our population is also on the autism spectrum, and many of the young people we serve have a mental health diagnosis of anxiety or depression.
What kind of resistance, if any, nationally have you faced in trying to place your clients?
So that really gets to the heart of our mission, which is to help employers understand the value proposition in hiring people who think and learn differently. 1 in 5 individuals has a learning or attention issue, so it's 20% of the population. So it's our mothers, our fathers, our daughters, our sisters, our brothers, our cousins, our coworkers, our neighbors. People with learning disabilities are in every part of society. I very strongly disagree with that statement. We have found in just 6 years of running program, we have partnered with over 50 employer partners in the Washington, D.C. area with the understanding that people who think and learn differently are part of the diversity conversation. So disability is part of the diversity conversation, and we are actually better off when we have people who think and learn differently in our workforces and helping us to have better results, better outcomes. And so that's kind of what we are really focused on, helping employers understand that. Does that mean that employers may need support in the beginning when they're onboarding someone who may think and learn differently? Absolutely. Just like all of us need support as we are going into new jobs and helping our employers to understand how we do best. And that's where Broad Future steps in. We try to help support that and make sure that the employers understand that the value proposition is on both sides for the employee and the employer.
In reality, do employers really face any substantial cash outlay in trying to accommodate employees with learning differences?
So no, we have not found that at all. This gets to the concept that we find in education called universal design. So the idea is what is good for someone who learns and thinks differently is good for everyone. The most common accommodations we find are basically what I would call being a good manager. So having your expectations be clear, having timelines be clear, having an opportunity for people to receive and give feedback. In addition to that, for our folks who have attention issues, it's the ability to get up and walk around, to be able to take a break. If you're in a meeting, to be able to stand up and not be seated the whole time. So none of these accommodations have costs to them. At one time there was costs associated with speech to text software and text-to-speech software. That's pretty ubiquitous now and is included on most of our computers in any event. So I would really say that's a myth, and I would also say that it's really, if we are making sure that we're including those who think and learn differently, it's better for our whole workforce.
Have you found more buy-in from corporate giants or mom and pop shops in trying to place your clients?
So I think the answer to that depends on what sector of the workforce are we talking about. So the idea that someone with a learning disability is one type of a worker is absurd. You could have someone with a learning or attention issue or a learning or related disability, any of those disabilities I earlier talked about, who could be, working at NASA as a PhD engineer. You could also have someone who's got a learning disability in addition to having an intellectual disability, and maybe their job is doing inventory and stocking shelves. These are equally wonderful professions for these two individuals, but they are in very different parts of companies. So I do think that the Walmarts of the world, there are case studies on them who've been able to hire a lot of young people with intellectual disabilities on a broad range. And I think that is harder to do in the mom and pop shops. We ourselves are really focused on young people in professional internships as well as hospitality. So these are people who are college bound. And within that group, we have a whole range. So we have a range from national organizations down to what you said, the mom and pop shops. The advantages are both. In a mom and pop shop, I think you have an easier time getting in the door because there's not as much red tape. And so you have an easier time making your case. On the other hand, there might not be the support system in place to support that person. There might not be that inspired supervisor, or it may be the case that the supervisor is, it's a small shop and that supervisor is responsible for many different roles. But we actually ourselves as an organization, we've had success at all levels. And I think that's how you have to tackle the problem. You can't just tackle it with the big organizations. You have to also tackle it with the medium-sized ones and the smaller ones as well.
What is the secret to changing perceptions among employers about job candidates with learning disabilities?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think the first part is making sure we're articulating the value proposition. Accenture did I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, they did a pretty robust study that really outlines the value proposition for employers for hiring individuals with disabilities, and especially in this situation where there's a market need and then there's a labor supply, right? We know that before COVID, and I assume it is still true, it's going to pop back up, but we know that we project out there's going to be a labor shortage. So if we have folks who are willing and able to work, it makes sense that there is your value proposition. I also think it's like any group that has been not had the same opportunities as other groups. We have to educate. So we have to educate employers. It's not enough to say, this is the right thing to do. This is not a moral issue. This is a value proposition, and this is the idea that what's good for business is good for everyone. So I think we have to, I'm a very strong believer that we have to have open discussions. What we talk to our employers about is, what are you scared of? What are you worried about? Can we open up that discussion? Can we provide support so that we can have an open discussion of what your concern is? And on both ends. We also have a concern with young people not disclosing their disability and then therefore not getting the accommodations they need in the workplace. And when it comes to learning disabilities, some individuals with learning disabilities do not possess the disability pride that we would like to see them possess, because they feel that if they talk about themselves as having a learning disability, people are going to think that translates to, I am not smart. And I, Carolyn Jepson, am not saying that is the right perception. I am saying that is what we are finding our participants are telling us when they are not wanting to disclose. So it's got to be a two-sided conversation about what can we do to talk about this, to remove the barriers that aren't allowing these young people to get into those jobs.
Thank you, Carolyn. We appreciate your insight. Next, Beacon College professors Drs. A.J. Marsden and Nikki Nance outline why building a more inclusive workforce that includes individuals with learning and attention issues benefits all sides. Dr. A.J. Marsden serves as an assistant professor of human services and psychology at Beacon College. She is an expert in organizational behavior, leadership, organizational culture, social psychology, motivation, emotion, and attitudes. Dr. Nikki Nance is a psychotherapist and an associate professor of human services and psychology at Beacon College. For 7 years, she served as a consultant to displaced workers and veterans and seminar facilitator at Florida's One Stop Workforce, a state government-operated job displacement service. And for 17 years, she owned and operated Nikki Betts, Inc., which specialized in mental health and employee assistance services. Now, just the facts.
Thank you so much, Daryl. So we're here today to talk to you about why you should hire people with learning disabilities. And here with me today is Dr. Nikki Nance. So the two of us together are going to tell you about why this matters. So first of all, about 20% of the population has some type of disability, whether it's a learning disability or a physical disability, but it's 20% of the population. And of that 20%, only about 17.5% of people with disabilities are currently employed. And that's not because they don't want a job. They want a job, they want to work. They just have a really hard time finding jobs that are good fits for them, and they have a really hard time competing for jobs because there is so much competition out there right now. So the economic and social cost of ignoring this 20% of the population is completely unsustainable. And the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 has set a utilization goal of 7%. But unfortunately, despite this Rehabilitation Act, there are stereotypes and there's still a lack of information, correct information, with regards to people with disabilities and how they can work at a good organization and be incredibly successful. So for example, right now, 43% of people incorrectly think that people with learning disabilities also have a poor IQ, and that's just not true. So we're going to go over some of the myths and some of the facts as to why you should hire people with disabilities. So I'm going to turn it over to Nikki at this point, and she's going to tell you a little bit more.
Thanks, AJ. Individuals with disabilities are valuable and marketable, and people with disabilities develop some very special skills. Particularly, they have good critical thinking skills. They have to figure out a lot of things just to get through a day. They generally have a lot of perseverance if they've gotten this far to be in the job market. They're good problem solvers. They have had to be good goal setters, keep their eye on the goal and keep moving forward, put one step in front of the other a lot of the times. Many of them are very determined. So they are going to stay with learning a task. They're going to stay with all they have to do to maintain themselves on a job. And it makes them really valuable in the workplace.
That's interesting, Nikki. It's also interesting that a lot of organizations think that accommodations cost a lot of money, and that's just not true. Most employers don't have to do anything to really accommodate these people. So they think that they have to change their physical structure and spend a lot of money, and that's just not true. In fact, about 50% of accommodations cost less than $500, and 15% of accommodations cost nothing at all. The most requested accommodation is flexible work hours, and again, this costs nothing. And there are even tax credits and tax deductions that can offset any costs of accommodations. So there are ways around this to really make it beneficial for businesses. And very, very few businesses experience any type of disability-related claims.
Providing accommodations is beneficial both to the employee and to the employer. If you provide a good accommodation, you're going to retain those valuable employees. Their productivity is going to be increased, and workplace morale is likely to go up. You'll have reduced costs in training and worker compensation, and improvement in company diversity. It's less expensive to provide the accommodations than to have an employee leave. It's always less expensive to have turnover than to have turnover.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about one of the points that you made, Dr. Nance. You said that it can have a positive effect on worker morale, and that's absolutely true. Watching somebody overcome a really big obstacle in their life, a really big challenge, can raise morale and provide a great working environment for everybody involved. So it really creates a lot of motivation, a lot of positive attitudes. In fact, most disabled people are willing to educate others about their disability. They want to talk about it. They want to educate others. This increases their comfort in talking about it and other people's comfort in being around individuals with disabilities.
And there are more benefits to hiring people with disabilities. Supervisors report that employees with learning disabilities are significantly more loyal, reliable, and hardworking than other employees, and they have significantly lower absentee rates and significantly higher tenure rates. So they're there to stay. Organizational leaders report that hiring employees with learning disabilities diversifies work settings and creates an overall positive work environment. Plus, 77% of the public think more highly of employers who hire people with disabilities.
Those are pretty amazing numbers, Dr. Nance. Well, those are the facts. Back to you, Daryl.
Thank you, doctors. We're going to close out this episode with our Difference Maker segment. I'm honored to have on the set today our correspondent, Janet Sawyer.
Thanks, Daryl. It's good to be here. Our difference maker is Jilika Kumar. Her interest in technology at Georgia Tech, and inspired by her autistic brother, she wanted to help people with learning differences get jobs. Well, she found a way to connect employers with neurodiverse people. It's called Mentra, and it just may be the future of employment for these people.
This is my brother. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old, and he's never spoken a word in his life.
At a very young age herself, Jilika Kumar says she knew it was her responsibility to care for and empower her brother Vikram.
He's 7 years older than me, and we've always grown up as sort of best friends. And when I was young, I always wondered why people treated me differently than they did him. Like when I went to school and college, he never had the same opportunities that I did.
It was when Vikram learned to use this letterboard that Jilika says her whole family was shocked. For 27 years, they thought Vikram had the brain capacity of a 5-year-old. He started typing, he knew words, poetry, and that was just the start.
He knew a lot about, math. He speaks several different languages that he's picked up over time just listening to people.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what really made me realize that there's so much untapped potential within him.
Jilika was on a mission to make sure her brother and other neurodiverse young people get jobs. Jilika, a team of her peers at Georgia Tech, and neurodiverse young adults created Mentra, a website or platform that connects those who are neurodiverse with employers.
Because our team is so diverse in terms of different skill sets, we had technologists, we had designers, we had marketing majors, we decided to come together at Georgia Tech to build a platform that would really bridge the two communities together, the employers and their neurodiverse individuals.
Just a year and a half in, Jilika says Mentra is getting lots of attention and going global. Still, Jilika says there is lots of work to do.
We are working to partner with vocational rehabilitation centers across the nation. So we hope that we can really be a pipeline for all neurodiverse individuals from across the country and then across the globe.
Vikram and Jilika are still the best of friends, and she says he gives her advice on the direction of how Mentra will grow. If you have a neurodiverse family member or friend who can benefit from this platform, you can find them at www.mentra.me. There you can create a profile, meet with a Mentra team member, and hopefully partner with the right employer. For a world of difference, I'm Janet Sawyer.
Thank you, Janet, for that inspiring look at what will hopefully be an inspiring future for neurodiverse job seekers. And congratulations to Jilika Kumar for making a difference. Well, that's all for this episode of A World of Difference. Remember that you can rewatch this episode or catch up on previous episodes by visiting the Beacon College Facebook page and looking under Video Series. You can also view episodes on Beacon College's YouTube channel and the A World of Difference portal on the Beacon College website, beaconcollege.edu. On the website, you'll find our experts' bios plus downloadable expanded tip sheets. For you podcast lovers, you and your friends can also listen to the program on the road, in your office, or in the shower, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. A World of Difference is available on Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, and other popular podcasting platforms. On our next episode, we will be exploring improving STEM outcomes for students with learning disabilities. You don't want to miss this episode. For Cindy Peterson and Janet Sawyer, I'm Daryl Owens. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.